Hey, good morning, everybody. Tim Walsh coming to you live from the Illinois Fire Service Institute on the campus of the University of Illinois, where today we're going to be delivering on our forum, First Due Considerations to a Trench Rescue. So as you can see behind me, we got a live trench ready to go. We're going to give you about 45 or 50 minutes of live training. We're going to go ahead and post today's training bulletin on the comment page of the Facebook page that you're viewing now, and we're going to give you a minute and a half to get signed in. So welcome, and I'll see you back here in 90 seconds. Hey, good morning again, everybody. Tim Walsh coming to you live from the Illinois Fire Service Institute here on the campus of the University of Illinois, where we're going to be delivering first due considerations for a trench job. I need you to do a couple things for me. So in the comment section is today's handout for training so that you can follow along. You can print that off, or you can use a double screen to take a look at that. I also want you to share this on your Facebook page right now so we can get some more viewers. And I want you to let me know where you're watching from. So hit the comment section, let us know where you're watching from. I have two instructors today, one of whom taught me this class 15 years ago, taught most of the Chicago Fire Department, and another gentleman that's about 5 years into the program. So I'm going to turn it over to Sonny Aidich and Fred McClellan, who are lead instructors today, and they're going to be doing a great job for you. So hit us with your questions, hit us with your comments, and I'll be back on to help these guys deliver. Thanks for joining us today, and we're going to go ahead and get started. Fred, Sonny?
My name's Fred McClellan. I'm with the Street Fire Department. I've been with the Institute for quite a while. I'm one of the lead instructors for trench. I also teach in confined space, and I also dabble a little bit in ropes for the Institute.
My name's Sonny Aidich. I'm with the Springfield Fire Department. I've been with the Fire Institute for 5 years now. I teach in the trench rescue program and also in confined space. Today I'm going to be the one that starts the show off with you. And I'm going to go over what we feel that you need to have on any engine company showing up to a trench rescue. The first thing I'd like to talk about is what are we going to wear when we arrive on scene to these off an engine company. If you have hard hats that you have on your apparatus, we would go ahead and you would wear a hard hat. If not, your fire helmet and your structure gloves are absolutely perfect. We'd have your station wear and make sure that you have some type of boot on. All right. I'm going to go over the tools that we know that you're going to be carrying on your engine. For one, we all got our high visibility vests that we're going to wear. That way we know who we are when the teams start to show up. Get off the rig with your vest on, have your 5-gas meter, the tape measure, and some type of marking paint. Okay. we want to start establishing our control zone. So we want to go ahead and get some caution tape out and make sure that we mark off the area and keep everybody out of here. All right. Next thing we go to is we typically have some type of portable generator on all of our apparatus, so we can pull that off with an extension cord. And if we have any type of fan, some of the rigs have smoke ejectors on them, we can go ahead and plug that smoke ejector in, get the generator started, and get any kind of air down to that victim that's in the hole. All right. We're gonna move on down here. We have a drag bag that we have. Most of the apparatus now carries all the combo toolkit. So you got a battery powered sawzall, circular saw, and a drill. We keep all of our bits and all that inside this bag just in case we would need it. This is our toolbox that we brought off of our engine. It's just a bucket where we keep things of our hammers, small sledgehammers, and a utility knife. And that's what we should think that you're going to end up carrying, just being first in. Fred's going to take over now and show you a little bit more of the technical side of this.
Okay, first thing we're going to talk about are our struts that we're using. In the state of Illinois, we have Paratech, we have Airshores, and we have Pro Spans. All of them have extensions that will come with them so we can add to them. We use pieces of webbing on both sides to lower down into the trench. We use different colors, so I can say down on blue, then the person on the blue line will know they can lower it down. Go up to 3 feet on the extensions. All of them are the same. The only one that's a little bit different right now is Hearst Airshore. You can only use 1 extension up to 3 feet. ProSpan and Paratech can use 2 extensions up to 3 feet, no more. The only there's something about ProSpan and Airshores. When you go into the trench, we literally have to go into the trench to lock these 2 out. That makes more risk for us as the rescuers. But when you got ProSpan or Paratech here, Paratech, I can actually go and lock it from outside the trench. I do not have to make entry to set my struts and lock them into place. We'll talk about our air connections a little bit. You look at Paratech, Paratech has one recess. Nice thing is the air connection is lower. It has less visibility for something to damage on it, which works really good for us. There's a safety build on our hoses. What we do, we have a lock screw. So we come up, push in, and we screw it down. Once it's locked in, this hose can't come off. Once we're done shooting our struts, if I need to take this hose off, I will decrease the pressure, then I will unscrew. Then I can actually pop it off and go. Also, Paratech makes a lot of tools that we use a lot. We're going to talk about Paratech has this regulator that we use that we can attach to the bottle. They also make an air cart over here for low pressure and high pressure tools. Kind of heavy, so if I need to carry it out in the field, it's hard to take. That's why they make the regular regulators, so I can go and take that and carry out to my job. The other things we use, Paratech makes Dudman. These are what we shoot our struts with. This is a 2-shooter, up, down on the red. I can shoot 2 struts at the same time, or I can do independent operations with those 2. Really handy to have this. Also, Paratech makes one of the, I believe, is one of the best bags out on the market. It's a low air pressure bag, and what this does will take up voids from where we have a collapse in the trench. We hook it up to our dead man. We'll put it in line. We will go ahead and shoot it to about 1 to 2 pounds PSIs, and that will take up the big void behind our fin form that we're going to show you how we're going to place in shortly. And here's a fan. Most tech teams, they have a duct fan, which has a 25-foot tube. We can take the duct and actually put it right next to the victim's face, and it gives them some fresh air on a cold, hot day like today. it will get some cool air moving and make things a little bit better for them. So this is another type of fan.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining us. So, as I stated before, the handout for today's training is in the comments section. You need to scroll up. Let's talk about some of the stuff we have on the table before I throw it back over to Sonny. So our partners here at the Institute, Hearst, Paratech, Milwaukee Tools, Honda Tools, Industrial Scientific Monitors, allow us to be able to deliver training for these two classes all over the state. So this is just a basic awareness level class that we're giving you here in 45 minutes today. Something that you might run into on the street, so we want to cover that. But the actual operations level and technician classes that we teach here on campus, and our other partner at Local 150, the operating engineers, partnered up with us, and they do a great job providing us a place to train. It takes about 45 hours to get through the operations course and another 50 hours to get through the tech course. So today, our trench, which we're going to get into here in a minute, is a pretty basic straight trench. And we're going to show you how to do that. But Sonny, come on back in here for me and tell me kind of what the basic definition of a trench is, and then tell me why the ladders are already in the trench and how we could use that exhaust fan that's carried on most companies if they don't have a tech rescue fan. Can you cover those three things for me, buddy?
Yep.
Thanks.
All right, a trench. For us, the definition of a trench is 4 foot deep. It's wider and longer than it's deeper and longer than it is wider. All right. So the ladders, with this being a training prop, we go ahead and already put the ladders in there and leave them in case anybody around this hole right now was to have an accident and fall in. We must have a ladder in that hole at least 25 feet apart, all right? And it needs to be sticking 36 inches up above the lip of the trench itself, all right?
Okay, great. And then let's talk about one more thing. That exhaust fan is carried on most fire companies because they might not have a tech rescue fan.
Yes.
What could they use on the fire company to get that fan close enough to blow fresh air into the space if their 5-gas monitor goes off on the initial assessment?
We can take anything, we can get that ejector fan over here to the edge of it. We can direct it down in the hole with any propping it up any way that we can, and to get some air down in there for that person. We have a portable generator, extension cords that we can pull off, and we typically all have those on our engines.
Great. So what we're going to do now, guys and girls, is I'm going to actually have Sonny go over first due considerations. If you're the first person on the scene at a bona fide trench rescue and you're sitting in the right-hand front seat, or you pull up in an ambulance, or you're the shift commander, what can you have in your buggy, on your person, that can make the rescue go more effective? So I'm going to walk over to the end of the trench here with Sonny, and he's going to get into that now, and then we'll get into some live rescue for you guys so you can see how we operate. We're actually going to do some demo before that, though. Sonny?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Okay, as I stepped off the seat as a company officer on the engine here, as the first in officer, I'm going to have my 5-gas meter. I've got my paint. I got a tape measure with me. And there's a few things that I want to pay attention to first. I want to make sure that I stopped all vibrations in this area for 300 feet. So if you have a piece of equipment that's sitting here that's still on from the person that was digging, we need to make sure that we shut that piece of equipment off, and then we retrieve the keys from them so they can't start it again. All right. Chances are this is their friend or their buddy that's down in this hole, and they're going to be doing everything that they can to rescue this person in itself. Okay. Let's talk about some things of this trench first. If I'm going to approach this trench, I want to approach it coming from this edge right here. All right. I have more trench ledge that is exposed on the sides of this trench where it's going to be weaker at. The foot and the head of this trench, it's not so open and it's holding back for us. So this is the safest part that I can stand at and effectively look into this trench. Now I've noticed that I've got a slough in that's over here where it's collapsed. The thing about collapses in trenches is that's why we're here in the first place, and more than likely we're going to have a secondary collapse. So we need to be conscious of that right from the start. I want to know how many patients we have, what type of injuries, how deep are they? How deep are they underneath all the dirt that they have fallen on them now? All right. Are they conscious? Any information that I can get and do a really good size up to give any crew that's coming in, or a technical rescue crew, to give them, to let them know what kind of job that they have. All right.
Hey, Sonny, one other question that just came in before we talk about marking and getting set up to make the rescue. What are some other items that we carry on a first due company that maybe we could throw the victim inside the trench if he or she is conscious to help effect a rescue?
Okay, great. The first thing that we would come off with is typically all of our apparatus have some type of shovel on it. So if this person is only halfway buried, you would hope that they've thrown him a shovel. If they haven't, we want to get tools off and hand tools so he can start self-rescuing him as you want. You got a rope bag, you could throw him a rope. In this case right here, if this person was able to help himself out, we could throw him a rope and dig him out, and maybe we could pull him out that way. So just anything that you can do to help him. Now think from the EMS standpoint too. If we needed to, we could also pass down an O2 mask to him. We can get oxygen on him to help him with his crush syndrome, all right? So as I walk up and I start looking at this hole, I want to get an idea about how deep he is and where he's covered up. I'm also looking on the ground for what's called fissures, all right? These fissures happen anywhere from 1/2 to 3/4 of the depth of the trench back. And what that does is that starts to show me that I'm gonna lose a sidewall of this trench and there's gonna be a secondary collapse, all right? I got marking paint here. And if you've looked in your handout, we'll know that different paint colors mean different items for us. So if we come across blue paint, we're looking at water, green is sewer, orange is cable, red's electric. So we use pink to go ahead and mark our fissures. Now, if you don't have paint on your apparatus, which probably most of them don't have pink paint, we do have something on there that everybody has on an engine with a dry chem. So we can pull a dry chem off and make a mark on the ground where that victim's at. All right, so if I have a secondary collapse, we're gonna know exactly where they are, okay? So let's go down through here. I'm gonna walk along this trench. I'm gonna look for fissures. I've also got a tube webbing tied to my gas meter. I'm gonna stick it down there by my victim and see what kind of readings I got, okay? So as I'm going down here, if you look on the ground right here by this ladder where I'm gonna mark, we have actually had a fissure that was opening up here the last couple days. Just in us walking over it, we kind of filled this crack in here, but we know that that one's here. We've been watching it. We've already had a cave in here. Also, I want to take a look at the area around this trench. For time constraints in this training evolution, we have already leveled out all of the spoil pile and the dirt, so when we put the ground pads down, we don't have a lot of work and we can keep the training flowing. So if you look over at the spoil pile, that has to be a minimum of 2 feet away from that trench. And we would love it if you got it 4 feet away, because that superimposed load is causing us more problems and all that pressure sitting on top of that dirt. All right, so I'm gonna go through here. I'm looking in my trench. I don't want to step right on the edge, and I want to be aware that I don't kick anything on my victim. So my victim's right about here. I'm gonna go ahead and get a good mark. Take my tape measure out. I want to kind of get a rough idea of about how deep they are, which right now we're probably at about 6 foot at the lowest point where they're at, all right, which makes it an operation hole, okay? At that point in time, I want to get back away from the trench. I do not want to stand up there, and I need to get my crew coming over and start getting our ground pads down.
So before we get into the ground pads and the actual evolution of rescue, we want to teach you guys one more thing. So as we talked about before, the state cache has predominantly air shores in it all over the state of Illinois. And that's because we purchased all those all over the state. But some teams across the state have seen the benefit in buying Paratech shores, including where I used to work. And the reason for that is Freddie talked about that a little earlier. We don't have to put rescuers in the trench to set those shores, and we can effect a rescue from the top side of the trench, thereby protecting our crews and making that rescue go faster. So Freddie's gonna come into the shot now. I'm gonna walk off and so is Sonny. We're gonna go over the operation of the dead man switch as we connect it to an air bottle and how those shores actually work. And then we'll get into ground pads after that. Sonny's gonna get his team ready to make a rescue. Okay guys? Fred, would you come back in please?
We're going to start talking about the dead men again. We're going to tell you the principle of how we shoot a strut together. So, first thing we're going to do, we're going to come up. We're going to turn on our bottle. We charged our bottle. On the Paratech regulators, there's an on-off switch. This is off. When it's in line with my hose, that means I have air flowing to my dead man. So now I have it open. What I'm always going to do is my regulator will always be set at 0. I'm going to turn it up to about 220 to 250. Then I'm going to come over to my dead man. I'm going to have it. We're going to put a hose on our strut. At this time, the person with the dead man is going to hold the hose in his hand. If I put it in, I could accidentally shoot it and I could hurt one of my rescuers. I won't put the hose into my dead man until the strut goes into the trench. Once it goes into the trench, hook it in, tighten the screw lock in. Then we're going to go, first strut I'm going to shoot it to 50 PSI. At that time, I can lock the collar. I'm going to go on this rotation we're going to show you. We're going to put another set of fin forms and shoot another strut to 50 PSI. We're going to lock out the collars. At that time, we're going to start backfilling. And once I'm done backfilling, because I got to make sure the force of these struts push all the way through the wood that we're going to put in and against the wall. Then we're going to, after that's backfilled, we're going to bring it up to 100, 150, 200. At 200, we're going to lock out the collars, and that layer is safe for us to make entry at that time. Once we go in, we do have to do one more thing to our struts. We have to put one nail into our feet. And our feet on these Paratechs, and also Airshore and Hurst, we have a fixed foot and we have a flex foot. Always put your fixed foot on the straightest wall. This one will give me about 17 degrees of turn, so the wall doesn't have to be as straight. This will come with your sets when you buy a strut. Once we get it in, it's sitting there. We'll never put a nail in the top, because if it fails, my strut fails or something moves, I can't see it. If I put it on the side, and if something fails, it will roll. That will show me that something's going on. I need to readjust my struts.
Hey Fred, we did have one question that I think you and I can cover. Why do we use the pink paint, and how do we separate the victim from the fissure markings? Talk about the colors of the paint that already may be on the scene from the utility locate.
Okay.
And why we use pink.
Our colors are red, means electrical. We got to be careful. Orange cable. We got sewer that's green. We have blue water. You got to know our 7 different colors. We're using pink just because we use it for fissures. What I would do for my victim though is our marking charts. I would actually come back and I put a V on the ground. That means a confirmed victim, and circle it, confirms it. That's where I could see, once you see that V and it's circled, you know that even with the pink paint, that it will be of my victim is going to be in this area.
And another thing that we would do, right, Fred, is we would have a site safety plan, which we do today. We have an off-camera site safety officer that would be monitoring where those fissure marks are, where the victim is. If there was a secondary collapse, we'd be able to refer to the chart that we already created off-site by a safety officer that's standing behind the scene. So we're going to kind of transition now. Freddie's going to go off camera, Sonny and the engine crew are going to kind of move in, and we're going to do some work, some actual rescue work for you. So when we do this, we're going to get the fellas laying down the ground pads for you so that you can see that, and then my camera person and I are going to move to the other end of the trench so we can get you a good shot of the tools that we're going to use. Freddie's actually going to run the incident along with Sonny, and because this is a real live trench, I want them focused on the trench because we're going to have rescuers near the trench, and we want to do it safely and effectively. So I'll be down with the camera person at the other end of the trench commenting and kind of doing a blow-by-blow about what they're doing. Freddie and Sonny will also be calling out commands that you'll hear, but it'll be a little bit distant. So we're letting you know right now, if you can't hear something, just ask me on the comments and I'll make sure it gets answered right away. So let's go to work and let's make a rescue.
Okay, here's my engine company officer. He's blessed today. He's got a crew of 4 people. Just to let you know, one of his firefighters on today has been trained to the operations level of a trench rescue. All right, so if we put him to work or we need him later in the situation, understand that he has been trained to this level, okay? So here's my company officer. He showed up today. He's got his gas meter, he's got his paint, he's got his tape measure, he's got his hard hat on. He's gonna walk over and he's gonna start assessing the trench and where the victims are and everything that we talked about earlier. You'll notice that he approached the trench from the head of it. He's marked a fissure. He sees where the victim's at. He has marked them. He put the V on the ground and circled it like Freddie said. And now he's going to drop his gas meter in there and get a reading, see if there's any bad atmosphere for that victim. At this time, he doesn't have that bad of a reading. He's going to try there and get a depth of the trench. While he's doing that, his crew has noticed that there's some half-inch plywood that's sitting over here that we can actually use as ground pads. We want to disperse our weight around this trench so we're not standing or causing any superimposed loads. We want to spread this out. So you can work with anybody on the site and see if they have plywood. Things that we have on the engine that we can use. Like if we got in trouble and we first showed up and there was no ground pads, we could go ahead and take a backboard off of our apparatus, stand on the backboard and move our spoil pile. We can find a 2x12. Now these guys can go ahead, they got a half-inch plywood. They're gonna start putting down these ground pads. Now if you notice when they put down these ground pads, they're gonna put the first one at the head of the trench. They don't want it sticking over the trench. And then now when they replace the other ones on the ground, they're gonna work off of the plywood itself and not stand on the dirt, okay? So you'll see this firefighter gets off to the side. They're sliding that ground pad down, trying to stay on that ground pad as best as they can. And then they're gonna lay this down as easy as possible. Now you'll notice that we're not overlapping these. We want to check these ground pads every 15 minutes. So if you have them overlapping, then we have to pick every ground pad up at the same time instead of picking one up and doing it systematically.
So while the fellows are putting the ground pads in, I'm going to answer a couple questions for Freddie and Sonny so they can get a drink of water. We had one question about heavy machinery on the scene. How do you move that away? We don't want to move it away. We want to shut it off, pull the bucket out of the hole, and secure the keys. And the incident commander or the safety officer should grab those keys. It's a natural instinct for an operator to try to rescue his own guys, and he's going to continue to dig unless you get those keys. Also ask if anybody on the scene has any extra keys. You might find operators actually in the hole trying to hand dig out their personnel that's buried by a trench collapse. You're going to have that discussion. Try to get a harness on those guys if they won't leave the hole, but don't let it affect your rescue. Continue to do what you're doing, just like the guys behind me. Get those ground pads down. And then the last question was, do we want to throw a pike pole in as a vertical marker for a victim? Probably not a good idea, because if we lose the sidewall on a collapse, that pike pole could push down on the victim, trap him, cut off his airway, or cause a bigger problem because it's rigid. That's why we use the paint on the top side and we move it back outside of the ground pads so that we have an area of refuge and we know where that victim is. We also have the site safety map that I talked about that the safety officer's doing. So I'm going to have Sonny and Fred come back in and run the incident now. We're actually going to get some obstacles out of the way in there. We're going to get pads placed down on the ground, and I'm going to go to the other end of the trench with my camera person, and we'll get going, okay? We're going to set these panels first, and then we'll go to the other end of the trench. My fault. I apologize.
Okay, we're going to show you some of the pieces of equipment that we actually use in the trench. These are called fin forms that we use. It's a special kind of wood wood that we have 14 layers on it, and it's glued and meshed together. We also put uprights on them. Our uprights are 2x12s, and it goes down the center. We'll be shooting our struts actually on the upright part of the fin form. We have some of our fin forms pre-laced just because we don't have a lot of time here. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to lace one to make it work a little bit better for us. Our webbings that we use about 30 feet of webbing because our fin forms are 4x8s. So that gives us about 5 feet that comes up and above the fin form, so that we can handle dropping our fin forms into the hole. What I do is I come up underneath, I put a cross on the back. I come under the handle. So my webbing is on the back side. Come under the handle. What this allows us to do, our trench, we have walls, we got bottoms. We also have something called the toe. The toe is where the wall and the bottom of the trench meet. What we're trying to do is get these fin forms as tight to that toe so we don't have to use as much backfill and make this rescue a little bit quicker and faster for us. So that's how we would lace up one of our fin forms, and you may assist a rescue team by doing this.
So I'm going to take back over and transition here for Freddie and Sonny, and they're going to start putting their crews to work. And we'll get that on camera as I'm walking down to the other end of the trench and talking. We've had a couple of questions come in while these guys were talking. One was, I like to see knots in the webbing to kind of give us a depth of where we're at when we're dropping stuff in. And yeah, that's a good technique. But buy the $2 tape measure, then you'll have an exact measurement, and put that on your first 2 companies. A lot easier than tying knots and webbing. And who's going to tie the knots in the webbing with the tape measure next to it to make sure they're all at an inch or at a foot? Just use the tape measure, faster and cleaner. And then the other question came from Liam, and I got to actually look at it, I'm sorry, because I was talking. So Liam asked me, would it be best to have 2 ladders at each end of the trench? So let's walk over here, Liam, and I'll show you why they're not at each end of the trench. Optimally, they want to be at least closer than 25 feet. And you want 2 ladders in the trench in case a rescuer falls into the trench while they're operating. But you can see, Liam, by where the victim's placed today, and this is a training evolution, we couldn't put them on each end because we wanted to make sure that we didn't put them on top of the victim. The other consideration to make is in an intersecting trench or a difficult trench, you may have to use a high point anchor like a ladder truck or some type of other high point anchor to lift the victim out of the trench. You can see that the victim has already been tied to a rope, and we're probably going to make that extrication after we get him protected with the 2 side panels and a couple of shots with the Paratech struts. So Freddie's calling out commands, as you can see here. They're getting the panel set, they're communicating with each other, and then we're going to get some struts in. This is a really important point. You can see at the far end of the trench behind Freddie, where he's actually keeping eyes on everybody, and the safety officer is standing behind me, that all the equipment is preset. And we call that the logistics section at a trench job. And that has to be your smartest guy or girl. And that's the person that is really into the equipment on the firehouse. And they take it out and they play with it and they know how to operate it, and they can put it together at 3 o'clock in the morning when you wake up and you're rubbing the boogers out of your eyes. So you have to be good at that. It's a little intricate, but you have to be cognizant of how it goes together, how the struts connect, how the extensions connect. And the reason we use different colored webbing, if Freddie already hasn't talked about it, but I think he has, is so we can say up or down on blue or yellow. That way he can call the level of the strut from the far end of the trench, and you'll see him do that now. So I'm just going to pipe down for about 30 seconds so you can hear him call it out. Fred?
Okay. We're going to lower red and blue down 2 feet. Red and blue, 2 feet down. Down about 4 inches. Stop. Blue up. Inch. Stop. Okay, blue, you need to go in the middle of your upright. You need to go to your left. A little bit more to your left. You're holding the hose. The hose won't lift up. There you go. Ready? On air?
Ready.
Shoot 50 on strut. Green hose.
So you can see our actual safety officer went in and moved one of our rescuers back from the trench to make sure that he was standing on the ground pad. So Freddie's shooting that strut at 50. It's a temporary hold. This is the benefit of using a Paratech strut. They're going to lock the collar off. We'll get another set of panels into the hole so that we can protect the victim. You can see where they place their first set of panels. near the chest wall and the head of the victim if there's a secondary collapse. Obviously, that victim's below 4 feet, so we can't just run down there and grab
this
them.
one up to 200.
So they're going to set it to a...
Shoot 100.
100.
150.
150.
200.
200.
Lock collar.
So because we're making a
Down
non-entry
on
rescue
green,
here today, guys,
slow.
we won't be backfilling. That's why we have straight walls. We don't need to show you how to move dirt in a wheelbarrow. I think you guys can handle that at
Okay,
your end and
gentlemen,
your
we need to
department
get the
when you're
next
training
set
on
of
it.
fin forms
So
in.
they're going to get the panels in. We had one other question while they're putting the other fin forms in, is that should we park 300 feet away from the incident to reduce vibration? Yeah, that would be optimal, but you're not always going to get that information from dispatch that it's a bona fide trench rescue. That's why it's so important. We're simulating that this victim is conscious but unable to get out of the hole. He has 2 broken legs, and we're just going to do a non-entry retrieval because he has a rope on. So if you get that information ahead of time and you're the incident commander or the first company on the scene, that's information you want to get out to the other companies. The other thing you want to do is if you're the first company on the scene is you get this as chest pain, and now it's chest pain inside a trench, you need to upgrade that alarm as somebody else indicated. Make sure you got the proper help coming. And if you're able to effect that rescue, the gentleman's able to get up a ladder or you're able to get him out with a rope before you have tech rescue come in and give you a hand, that's always a great thing. But you want to make sure that you're setting the table to get the effect of the rescue completed. Once you don't call for help, it becomes a problem as it moves on.
Nice.
Go ahead, Fred.
Okay. Lower the second panel down. Bottom up. Put the seams up. Nice. Bring the strut in. I need one of you guys to break off. Grab the strut.
You can also hear how quiet it is right now because this is a live trench, and this is a really key point that I want you guys to understand, and girls. When you get on these jobs, you have a lot of gawkers, right? And they want to walk up to the trench. That's why the safety officer for real is standing behind me, making sure that's not happening. And you can hear there's no talking amongst the rescuers. They're working together to complete an objective. So all those sidebar conversations that everybody's having within 25 feet of the trench causes a problem for the operations boss to be able to effect this rescue. So sometimes you might even need to call an all quiet on the scene, make sure that the area is clear of tripping hazards, which we've already talked about earlier, and the spoil pile is at least 2 feet away. Freddie?
Good. Are you in the centers, guys?
Down a little bit on blue.
Okay, shoot me 50 on red. 50 on red. Since the walls are good, we're gonna go on up. Shoot me 100. Shoot me 150.
150.
Give me 200.
200.
Lock collar. Down on red.
Now obviously at this point of the
Down red.
rescue, as Fred described
Thank
before,
you.
that's area right at the level of the strut is secure. So we could send a rescuer down on a ladder and he can nail those struts off. And then we can drop in additional struts, aided by a rescuer, on a ladder in the safety box zone, going no deeper at his waist than where the struts are, to get additional struts set down if we had to actually go down there and dig and make a rescue. But because the victim is ambulatory and we're just protecting him, we're able to effect that rescue now with the girth hitch, get him over to EMS. And sure, the question's going to come in, hey Tim, you told me that guy had 2 broken legs and you're dragging him out of a hole with rope. Yeah, he had the legs are broken already, and to put a rescuer down there, to put a rescuer down there in an unsafe area to splint those legs is a decision that command is going to have to make. Risk benefit. Are we protecting our rescuers, or are we getting the victim out and getting him to medical at the hospital, medical control much faster? So each organization is different, how you're going to operate that, whether you're BLS, intermediate, or ALS, those are decisions you're going to have to make on the scene. So we're going to walk back over here to Sonny and Fred and talk about the highlights that we covered today, and make sure, just like we always do, we're going to tell you what we tell you, we're going to tell you, now we're going to tell you what we told you. All right, Sonny and Fred, would you cover the highlights? Sonny, would you please cover the highlights of the First Do Company, and Freddie, the tech rescue stuff? Thank you.
Yes. Just remember, on that First Do Company, the best thing that you need to do is establish command and get a really good size up. What do we have? How many victims? How deep are they? Where are they at? What type of injuries do we have? Make sure that you have a TRT team headed your way if you're not able to do that yourself. Get ground pads down if you have anything that we can step on, and get all the superimposed loads back and stop all vibrations.
For us, call the teams right away. Don't call for one. On trenches, it's going to take a long time. Personnel, we're going to need a bunch of people. If you call one, call the second one, because if something happens to you on the first team, you want that second team there, be able to help you, and have the RIT ready to go. The other thing is, make sure that your struts are shot to 200 and the collars are locked. That is the most important, to get that force back to the walls to keep the walls from collapsing on us.
So fellas, we had one question that I want you to cover. How many struts do we need on each panel? And I know you guys know the answer. It's based upon how deep the unit. But let's talk about the objectives and all the different factors that go into that algebra problem.
Okay, for us, we need at least 2 struts in a 8-foot section. So we always put our first one at 2 feet. Then we go down. We can't go any farther than 4 feet from the strut above. That will get us to 6 feet, and that will cover the fin form. So I literally need 2 to actually perform a rescue. Sometimes in the past we've had really bad trenches, and we'll put a third one in there. We'll just shorten the sizes a little bit and put 3 struts in there to give us more protection.
Great, Freddie. That's it, I think, fellas. Those are all the questions. You did a great job. Nice rescue. And we did it with a live trench, which actually held up over the last 2 days. So we want to thank all our partners here at the University of Illinois Fire Service Institute, Paratech, Hearst, Milwaukee Tools, Industrial Scientific Monitors, everybody that allows us to bring these training sessions to you all across the country. Hey, special shout out to Portugal and France that are watching today. Remember, this will be posted on our YouTube channel and our Facebook page in about 30 minutes right after we get done. Share this, right? Rescuers are hurt all across the country in trench collapse because they enter an unprotected area. Know what you can do as a first responder. Know what you can do as a tech rescue team. Train with the companies that are near you and other departments. Make sure you have a handle on it before it becomes an issue. So we appreciate you joining us here today. We'll be back in 2 weeks with RIT Under Fire, and we'll show you how to make rescues in a fire building with no fancy tools, just old school, picking up the firefighter. All right, so we'll see you back here in 2 weeks. Take care of each other, keep training, and be safe and smart.